Anthropic came up with Claude 3.5 Sonnet in June, and it quickly became very popular amongst developers because of how well it writes code, and also because of this feature called Artifact, where it's able to take the code that it generates and put it in a separate window, and it also is capable of running some applications on that window. It's really awesome, so I'll be using Claude, and I'll also be using a few other AI technologies to create a demo e-commerce application that has a recommendation engine powered by Supabase Vector. To make this sample e-commerce application, we're gonna have Claude generate some dummy JSON data for us. The way we're gonna go about creating this sample application is we're gonna have Claude generate the dummy JSON data first, and then we're gonna create a node script that takes the JSON file, loops through each item, and then we're gonna generate an image using DALL-E 2 model. I know DALL-E 3 is the latest model, but DALL-E 2 is cheaper and it gets the job done. Once the images are generated, we're gonna store those images into Supabase storage. Then we'll also generate embeddings for each item. Finally, we'll take the image URL, generated embeddings, and all the metadata for each item and save them in our Supabase database. And then lastly, we'll create a frontend that queries the Supabase database and displays all the fashion items. Alright, our sample JSON data is created. Now let's have it generate a node script that'll take the JSON file, loop through each item, and generate the image, store it in Supabase storage, and also generate the embeddings using OpenAI API, and finally store everything in Supabase database. Let me skip ahead to when it finishes generating. And I actually prefer TypeScript, so I'm gonna ask Claude to convert everything into TypeScript. And Claude provided me a set of instructions to follow to set up this project. So let's set it up on our local machine. Grab the npm init command and go to a local directory that I've already created. I'll be adding both the front-end application and the node script that'll process the JSON data in this directory. So let me create a script directory, which will hold the node script. And within the script directory, I run the npm init command. Now I can run the second command, which installs a bunch of dependencies. So far so good, let's move on. Step number 3 is to initialize TypeScript configuration. Going to step number 4, we just need to update the tsconfig file. So far nothing complicated, Claude was able to provide me nice and clear instructions on what to do. Then we can move on to setting up environment variables. Create a .env file and paste the code samples from Claude. We'll get the values later. Let's copy the JSON file that it generated. Open up the JSON file artifact and copy the data into fashiondata.json file. Going back to the instructions, now we need to create a directory called images. So let's do that. Go to our script and create a folder called images. Now finally, it's time to create the Supabase project. Let's head to database.new and create a new Supabase project. I'm gonna call my project Claude Commerce. We can generate a secure password. And for the region, you should just select a region that's close from you. And now the Supabase project should be created in a minute or two. While it's cooking, let's go back to the instructions. Instruction number 10, let's add the start script into our package.json file. Just paste it right in there and we're good to go. And that seems like the end of the setup instructions, so let's actually set up OpenAI API key. Hit the create new secret key. I'm gonna name it Claude Commerce. And for anyone who's watching this video this far, congrats, you get a free OpenAI API key right here. Also, the Supabase project should be ready by now, so let's go ahead and get the Supabase URL and the Supabase key. For this, we're not going to use the anon key, but instead I'll be using the Supabase service role key because I know the script is going to be only run in a secure environment, and I want the script to just bypass all the row level security. Paste it right in there, and that's all the environment variables we need to run the script. I actually noticed that I haven't copy and pasted the main script, so let me just do that. Let's copy this file name and create the file inside script/source. Let's go get the script code copy it and paste it right in. Let's do some minor fixing of the code. The way the OpenAI library is imported is incorrect, and we can import it as OpenAI from OpenAI. And then coming down to the configuration, we can actually just take this API key, delete the entire configuration, and just pass the API key directly into the OpenAI library. Now, OpenAI doesn't have a create image method, but instead it has images.generate. We can also pass a model and specify DALL-E 2. Let's also update the size to 1024. And the return URL is inside data URL. And I'm just gonna be lazy and say that there's always gonna be a URL return, so add a exclamation mark. Now, similar to the image issue, there's no create embeddings, but instead there is embeddings and then create method. And just like the image, there's an extra data, so delete that, and we're good here. Now, just skimming through the code, it looks fine. And let me just actually take the embedding generating code and bring it before generating the images. Because generating images and handling and all that is pretty complicated, I just want to verify that embedding generation works first. Now that the script looks like it'll work, let's actually go back to Supabase and set up our Supabase project. We need to first create the table, but let's see if Claude can generate the SQL statement to create the table necessary for this project. And voila, it's able to create not just a table, but necessary or possibly necessary indexes for this table. Let's go to the SQL editor and paste it in. Let's actually modify it to have the vector extension be created in the extension schema. And instead of storing the image path, we can just store the image URL directly. Everything else seems alright, so let's hit run. And our table has been created. We can go to the table editor and double check. And it looks pretty good. Now let's also set up our storage bucket. Let me go back to the instructions to double check what name I had to give to the bucket. And it is fashion images. So let me just copy this and create a public bucket named fashion images. Great, the bucket has been created. Now because I rename image path to image URL, there's a few places that I have to fix. Update the image path to image URL for when we insert the data into Supabase. Update the image path to image URL for the type definition. And add some code to actually obtain the image URL instead of just the image path. Pass the bucket name and call getPublicURL. Also some additional minor adjustments. Let me make this upload a upsert so that we can actually run the script multiple times and it wouldn't error out. And same with the Supabase insert as well. Let's update it to upsert so that it will allow us to run the script multiple times. It looks like we have an error here and it's saying that we need to actually access the .public URL. Things are looking good. We should be ready to actually run the script. So let's run it for 1 loop instead of 50 loops and see what we get. And we can just call npm run start. And the image generation takes some time, so it's gonna hang in there quite a while. But we get an error saying the system tried to access images/1.ping, but there was no such file. It looks like I needed to create the images directory inside the source directory. Run the script again and we actually get a different error. It looks like the error is related to the download image function, but let's have Claude debug it for us. I give Claude the error message and just tell it to fix it. And Claude generates a new set of script. It's not related to the error itself, but let me bring over this content type over to our script. And after inspecting the code, I noticed that this file buffer might have been the key to our error. So I copy it over and replace the fs create read stream with the file buffer. Let's run the script again and see what we get. And after waiting for some time, our script is complete. Let's double check everything on Supabase dashboard. On the storage bucket, if we refresh the page, we can see that one.ping is present right there. And in the table editor, we can see that we have a row in our table. Great, now let's go back and run the script for the entire 50 items. Now I'm back here, and it looks like after 42nd item, something happened and it errored out. It looks like OpenAI thought we were feeding in some inappropriate prompt. Let's check the data. So it should be ID number 43 that OpenAI thought was inappropriate, and maybe the feminine word? I don't know. Anyway, we have 42 sample data in our application, so I'm gonna say that's good enough. Now it's time to create the front end of our application, the fun part. I'm asking Claude to create a beautiful e-commerce website for our fashion brand with a top page and a item details page. I didn't specify what language or framework to use, but it seems like it's spitting out a Next.js application. I believe Claude is not able to run Next.js applications yet, so I'll be taking this code and setting it up locally in my machine. Now Claude is working on providing the instructions on how to set up the project. The code it gave me is using Pages Router, so let's ask it to convert it to App Router. Great, now let's follow the instructions and set up the project. Run the create next app in the root of our directory. I'm gonna call my app so that we have a app directory and script directory in this project. For all the options, I guess Claude didn't provide any instructions, but I'm just gonna go with the defaults. cd into the new app directory and let's install Supabase.js dependencies. Then let's set up the environment variables. Create the .m.local file. And let's go find our Supabase credentials. Go to project settings and API. And paste the sample code. And copy and paste the Supabase URL and Supabase admin key right in there. There's a few files that we need to edit and 5 or 6 files that we need to create. We can start from the layout.tsx. There's no actual functionality that we need to add to this file, but I'm just gonna edit the metadata so that we have a better title and description. Then we can edit the top level page.tsx. Copy all the page.tsx content and paste it right in there. We will worry about the errors later on, so let's move on. Let's now create this first component. Create the file inside the app directory and copy the content. It's really nice that Claude is able to include the proper imports for us as well. And let's see, it looks like I may have copied over 2 files into this single file. Yes, I did. Let me just delete that and we're good. And from here on, it's just creating the file and copying over the content. So let me just skip over. And that is the last file that we needed to create. Let's move on to the next step, which is to run the app. So let's do that. Open localhost 3000, and we see an error, of course, because I said I was gonna fix, but never went back to it. This is the code that's fetching all the different categories within this app, and the error is happening because Supabase doesn't have a distinct method. The way we're going to solve this is we can create a view that holds the different unique categories within our database. And to create the view, I could ask Claude to write the SQL to create the view, but I could also ask Supabase AI Assistant to do the same. So here I am doing that. Let's run the query, and we have a view of list of categories. And we could just create a newly created view. Let's make sure the view contains all the information that we want. And it looks like it does. So I don't think there are any more errors in the app, so let's go back and check it out. And okay, it's showing something. So it seems like the images aren't being properly displayed. Let's check out if we are inserting the correct image URL. It turns out that I made a mistake of uploading the images to fashion-images, but I'm generating the public URL for fashion_images. Let's see if there's a quick and easy fix. Jumping back into the SQL editor, and we can ask the AI assistant to update the image URL values of the fashion items table to the proper URL. And it provides a simple SQL statement that we can run to update all the underscores into hyphens. Awesome, but it seems like the images are still not showing up. Let's go check if the image URLs are actually corrected. And we can verify that the URL actually does point to the proper image. Let's go back and inspect the web page. And we can see that there's something wrong with the image URL. If you remember, I changed the image path column to image URL column earlier, and this is all because of that. So we need to basically change all the image paths to image URLs in this application. I guess one lesson learned from here is don't try to make fixes by yourself, let Claude handle it. And that way it's able to make adjustments to all the subsequent generations. So here I delete the image path and update it to image URL and also get rid of all the excess Supabase URL junk. And it looks like all the items are properly being displayed. We can click any of the items and it looks like there's some additional fixes that we need to do. It's the same fix here, but it looks like Claude isn't using the types that we created. Maybe that's something I should have asked earlier. And I just need to fix the related items. It's the same thing, getting rid of all these environment variable stuff and just displaying the raw image URL right here. And it looks great. We have a functioning e-commerce website for our fashion brand. Now currently we are displaying these related items by fetching the items that are in the same category as the main item that's being shown. And the code that's doing that is right here, get related items. So we're just selecting 4 items that are in the same category. That works fine, but I want to show you a better way of fetching related items using Supabase vector database. Let's first get rid of these category parameters because we won't be using them. We can remove them from the actual function definition as well. And we'll take care of this error later on. We can actually utilize the embeddings column that we created in our table to query semantically similar items. To achieve this, we need to create a Postgres function. And to create a Postgres function, I'm going to use Supabase AI Assistant. The function seems fine, but the return type should be set of fashion items, so let's update that. Okay, I guess my prompt wasn't too great, so let's manually update the code. We can just return all the columns. And then we can update the return type from manually constructing a table to fashion items. We can also write this in plain SQL, so get rid of begin and end, and change the language to SQL. Run the SQL statement, and we have the function created. Go back to the code and let's update this query statement. Instead of constructing a query, we can just call the RPC method to call this function. We need to pass 2 parameters to this function. One, the input ID, which is the current ID of the item, and 2, the input embedding, which is the embedding of the currently viewed item, which we don't have, so we need to add a parameter right here. And the type of embedding is actually just string because any advanced Postgres type is going to be string in Supabase. And we can pass the embeddings as a parameter as well. Now let's make sure we pass the embeddings to this function. And we also need to add embeddings as a parameter of this component. This is kind of an unrelated error, but I'm just gonna say item is any type and just ignore this error. Now go to the parent page and make sure the embedding is being passed as a parameter here. And since item is any type, let's verify that the embedding is being passed through. Since we are getting the item by querying Supabase database and getting all the columns, it looks like embeddings is coming through. But let's update the type just because. Now save everything and it seems like we are getting an error. After digging into the error, it turns out that the error is being caused by the Postgres function returning a single object instead of an array. And I've noticed my mistake. We need to change the return type to set of fashion items so that it can return multiple fashion items in a single function call. We can drop the function, recreate the function, and we should be good to go now. We can go back to the web app and click on an item. Each item displays a set of related items, which is being semantically searched on the Supabase database using embeddings. Even in this quick demo with 42 items, you're able to see some patterns where women's wear brings up other women's wear and shorts brings up other shorts. That's the power of vector database. The way we use Supabase vector was very basic in this video, but if you want to learn something more advanced, you should check out this video right here. I'll see you around in another Supabase video. Bye!